All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is 4 o'clock, so we're going to get started in a moment. You should be able to access the chat. It is down in the lower right-hand corner, the little talk bubble, and I've been dropping in this link here to your resource journal that you're going to need for your participation today. And I'll do it one more time. And Brandon, let's take it away. Are we recording?
Yes, it says recording is in progress. So wonderful. All right. Today is part 2 of our ALI training. Again, ALI stands for Advanced Learning Indicators, and we are going to cover actually only acceleration and extension today. We are holding enrichment for next week. So,
Extension.
Yeah, sorry, we are holding an extension for next week. We are your Arts Ed DPI team. I am Brandon Rader, the music and theater arts consultant.
And I'm Laura Stotterman, the dance and visual arts consultant. And our section chief is Dr. Lori Major Carlin, who is a former theater director. And so the three of us are your NCDPI arts education team.
In addition to us, your honors team includes Chrissy Brown, who is the honors coordinator for all of DPI, and Kelly Schultz and Tom Doherty, who represent our Office of Teaching and Learning on that honors team. As Laura mentioned just a moment ago, you will need your reflection guide to turn in for CEUs at the end of this webinar, whether you are watching it live or whether you are watching it through the PD catalog. So please do make sure you click on this link, you scan this QR code, you type it in, whatever it is, and it will take you to a force template. And you click the blue button in the upper right-hand corner that says Use Template, and it will make your own version. Please copy that URL and put it in the CEU survey at the very end of the day so that you can receive that credit. Today, we are going to really focus on applying our ALIs. So we're going to apply the acceleration ALI to modify standard level instruction into honors level instruction, and we will also do the same thing with the extension ALI. We carry over these community agreements for you. Again, we really want to lean into the idea of accepting and expecting non-closure as we are doing a 3-part webinar series. Not all of your answers may be answered, or your questions may be answered today, but we do hope to continue to work with you and find all of those answers as we go. Just to kick us off and get us into the right frame of mind today, I want to share this visual illusion with you and ask you just to type into the chat, what do you see first? Do you see a young woman or do you see an old woman? Several of us see young women first. Yeah, you have to kind of squint to see the old one. Ah, Kristen sees both at the same time. You're amazing. That's so cool. All right. So yeah, this is an optical illusion, which means that we can see different things depending on the way that we see them, or that depending on the point of view that we take. So I want to ask you, how does this relate to the elephant story that we read in the first webinar? If you weren't there, I encourage you to go back and watch the recording, but we had 6 blind men and an elephant, and each one were trying to describe the elephant by only a portion of the elephant. An elephant is strong like a tree because he is holding or touching the trunk, or an elephant is soft and supple like a curtain because he's touching the ear. Ah, I love it, Marlo. Thank you. Another way of looking at something with different perspectives, both can be correct. Yeah. Things are different based on your perspective. Wonderful. Please hold this truth that there are multiple answers as we move through this today. Again, if you haven't seen webinar 1, please do watch it in the PD catalog. It can be found on our hub. We talked about webinar 1 last week about differentiation. Webinar 2 today covers acceleration and enrichment. And again, next week, webinar 3 will cover extension and depth and complexity. All right, Laura.
Right. So as we talked about in our first webinar, this is how we are going to be conceptualizing and moving and transforming from our standard courses study into the honors level objectives, right? And so what Brandon designed in this visual here is a funnel, a different way of looking at that Venn diagram that we shared with you just very briefly on the earlier slide and in the last webinar. So first we have our standard level of instruction, right? We've got to start there, and then we're going to obviously have to do some differentiated tasks and learning within that. And the way in which we're going to then see those is going to be through these three ALIs: acceleration, enrichment, and extension. Finally, we'll be examining how depth and complexity can be applied into increasing that rigor. And then that's how we arrive at our honors level curriculum. And all of this requires very purposeful implementation and instruction, okay? So it's really important, if we have to start by transforming our standard level course of study, we've got to know, well, what do we mean by the standard objectives, right? And so sometimes we think we understood what the language was saying if we're just reading the objective, but really we want you to start with our unpacking documents, because these resources provide a much more grounded knowledge of what the students need to know and be able to do as far as those skills and skill sets. And then also we're giving you the vertical alignment that shows you what they should have done in the lesson, in the year before, or the grade level before, proficiency level before, and where they're going next, so that you make sure that you're staying still within the scope. Because as you design honors level work, you're not going to be bumping them up, let's say from beginning to intermediate objectives, right? So you have to know, well, what are those intermediate objectives? So you stay within that standard scope of it. Looking at those key insights, teacher actions, and possible learning activities will continue to also give you ideas and guide you. So it's really important that you start with these documents. And if you don't know where they are, on our next slide, we show that you can find them in our AE Hub. Not only are they there with the button unpacking documents, but you can also access them through your own arts discipline button. So dance, music, theater, or visual arts, they would be located for you within those hubs as well. So we want you to take a minute and pull them up if you haven't already, because we will be referencing them today as you are working with some of these tasks. So we can drop that link in the chat for you again. But taking these multiple approaches, right? So we start, here's our Venn diagram again. We look at how you see the three circles of acceleration, extension, and enrichment all overlapped, all within a larger circle of depth and complexity. And as we're taking bits and pieces of all of those as we're designing our curriculum, that's what's going to constitute honors. We see it here in the funnel. Again, we're starting with that standard level. We're going to be differentiating, looking through these three ALIs, and then how we increase depth and complexity. Again, they can be used alone. They might be layered. So you might have these activities that might do one or the other, or a little bit of both. And so today we're only going to look again at these two examples. And here is a document that we have created for you that's going to walk you through some of our definitions. And on the back side, they are discipline specific, so that we've actually even given you examples of what this might look like for a specific proficiency level and objective, and how we take the standard objective, we give you a possible learning activity or learning unit, and then how you can potentially build that within the ALI to increase it to an honors level course. And so Brandon has dropped those in the chat for you. We've got both the unpacking documents as well as the ALIs. And I think we're going on to the next slide if you have a minute to get there. Okay, so what you see here, if you have a moment to access it, is everything is color coded for you, and it's to match and align quite beautifully with this funnel graphic, right? So at the start with level 1, we have our standard level of instruction, and then we see differentiation, and then we're going into the different examples of acceleration, enrichment, extension, and then depth and complexity. And at the very end, that is your arrow that shows you that this is now honors level curriculum. So today we're going to take this approach in which we're going to be looking at ways in which we're going to define the ALI. Again, we're just doing two of them with you today. We're going to take a close look at that definition. We're going to examine these possible curricular designs that support it. We're going to review an example together. We're going to ask all of us in the webinar to try an example together without the answer provided for us, and let's see what we come up with. And then we're going to ask you to try it alone. And so if you're watching it on the webinar, you can always, on your own, you can always hit pause at that time. And we, depending how much time we're able to give you live, you may or may not complete it. But again, we go back to our norms and say, like, just, it's okay that you're speaking in rough draft. You may not come up with all the answers, and that's okay. At least we are trying, and this is our first attempt at this, and we will be there for you as we continue to build support.
I keep thinking this is our first rodeo for sure. We are going to start in step 3 with acceleration. And acceleration was a hard one for me. Again, primarily elementary school teacher here. So like trying to wrap my brain around this. If I can do it, you can too. Acceleration isn't just about going faster and increasing the pace. It's also about increasing independence or giving earlier access to some students than others. And so the central question here is, how do some students move through content at different paces, perhaps more quickly than other students? And so this is the formal definition that the honors team has put together. Students should be able to progress through an educational program at rates faster or at younger ages than conventional. Accelerate learning for students who are mastering or could master the content standards at a faster pace. So again, we aren't talking about creating new content for students. We're just talking about letting them move through it more quickly. 3 ways that we can do acceleration in arts education, well, in all classrooms, but in arts education specifically, are continuous progress, self-paced instruction, and curriculum compacting. So what I like to think about, or I actually like to start with the last one, because curriculum compacting is what I think of as acceleration honors courses in general. And I just want to harken back to the fact that Laura talked about structure and the way that you put your courses together in the previous webinar. And that's really important here because curriculum compacting may or may not work for you. If you're trying to get all, let's say, 7 visual arts units together in only 10 weeks instead of 18 weeks so that you can have 3 more units for your honors kids, then that may or may not work if you also have standard level students in your classroom. If you have beginning and intermediate honors in the same classroom and you can just tier assignments, maybe it does. So curriculum compacting is taking the standard level instruction curriculum, making it take less time, and then adding additional like deeper work to, or additional topics perhaps, or additional repertoire, additional artworks in at the end. So that's one way that we can accelerate. We also can allow students to have the ability to continuously progress. So maybe students are set up more like a studio where they are asked to move from project to project to project to project as fast or as slow as they desire. And so they can move very quickly through the first, the second, the third, and they just always have the very next thing ready for them. This also works in repertoire, but in our performing arts classrooms, it might need to be a cohort of students because they are performing for one another or with one another. Maybe it's only a portion of the coursework where students are moving through monologues and scene development at their own pace, or they're working through etudes at their own pace. It could be any of those sorts of continuous progress things. And I sort of teased just a second ago, self-paced instruction. So this might be that they want to dig in more deeply into a specific subject that is being studied in the classroom. Maybe they are moving more slowly in the areas that they didn't already have background knowledge in, but then they're kind of like zooming through in the areas that they do already have deep background knowledge in or high technical ability or whatever it might be. And so you can think of lots of examples across arts education where either a portion of the curriculum or the entire curriculum can be adjusted to move at the speed of the student. So what we'd like you to do next is bring up this document. And again, it is even hyperlinked in the reflection guide. That's what that image in the upper right-hand corner is there. And Laura is dropping the reflection journal link into the chat again. And I'd like you to look at the top dark blue navy example. What you see first is the actual objective that we are addressing. In the middle is what standard instruction looks like according to the unpacking document. Then we are running it through an acceleration filter to create the honors level instruction on the right-hand side. What I'd like you to do is take a second to look at that. By the way, the document that you are linking out to has all four, so you might need to scroll down there in alphabetical order: dance, music, theater, visual art. And you can look at your specific discipline's examples for acceleration. And answering in your reflection journal, and anyone who feels brave, actually, you don't need to put it in the chat. You can just hold it in your reflection journal, and I'll give you just a couple seconds to do that. Once you've had a moment to read it, I want you to try to discern which one of the acceleration tools was used. Was it continuous progress? Was it self-paced instruction or curriculum compacting? We've got the answers right here for you. If you were looking at dance or music, the examples were modified through the lens of continuous progress. Theater was modified through the lens of self-paced instruction, and visual arts was modified through curriculum compacting. Now, even though we took great pains to make sure that we had examples from that were authentic to all four arts instructional areas from the disciplines, feel free to take a look at what the other ones have if you're trying to figure out what the differences are, because all of those are maybe a little bit nicer when you're able to juxtapose them from one another. All right. So we are going to try this ourselves, and we're going to do this twice today with the exact same objective, and then we'll do it once more next webinar. We took a look at this common objective. Pretty much all of us in all four arts forms have some version of this exact objective. Describe how the emergence of your art form as an art form has influenced society. So you can see the original forms there, but we're going to use this generic sort of form. And so if we were going to create our own little table of examples, we'd have our objective on the left-hand side and our standard level instruction coming from the unpacking document. That says that after teacher-led instruction on how an art form developed, students might summarize its impact on society using 3 or 4 examples provided in class. So if we were going to try to modify this actual objective through acceleration, how would we do this What do you guys think? Do you want to try continuous progress, self-directed instruction, or curriculum compacting? Whoever types in the chat first wins. There are no wrong answers. That's the best part. We can do it any of these ways. All right, self-paced instruction is what came through first. So if we were trying to modify the standard instruction about how they are describing how the art form has influenced society, how could we use self-direct or self-paced instruction to take a look at this, to deepen the honors instruction? So we see that the standard instruction is very teacher-centered. The teacher is going to come up with the examples, and the teacher will actually share these examples with the students, and then the students will regurgitate that information on an exit ticket or some sort of test. So maybe self-paced instruction is more like students have a choice board. Marlo's saying, ask students to research. Great. Caitlin's saying students could research independently. Janice, student research. Yeah, so it doesn't even have to be wide open, right? It could be, hey, kids, I want you to make sure that you are researching these 5 things, and you can go as fast or as deep or as slow as you want to go touch point on how, music has informed society in these 4 big ways. Students might select the art form that they want to explore. Yes and no. If you're in visual arts, it should be a visual art example because the standard is actually asking how visual art as an art form has influenced society. Great. Cool. I hope that was a little illustrative. But we really want to encourage you to lean in on Miss Frizzle's wisdom and take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. The greatest part is that we have the opportunity here to kind of pressure test things, and we can even, ask each other, how does this look? How does this feel? Talk to other teachers, talk to our honors coordinators, all of these things where we can try something out, get our feet wet, maybe muddy, and we can just see how it goes. So what we'd like to do now is invite you to again turn to your unpacking documents and your reflection guide and choose an objective that you feel like you can accelerate. Now, let me throw a caveat out there. Not every advanced learning indicator of these multiple approaches of acceleration, enrichment, and extension are good lenses for every single objective. Some objectives might not really be able to be practically implemented for all objectives or for a specific objective. Maybe you can't really accelerate their ability to use feedback before everybody else because you haven't gotten around to giving feedback yet. Selecting repertoire, maybe that's not yet appropriate in the course, the arc of the actual semester. So I'd like you to choose an objective, write it down on number 5, and on number 6, just jot down an idea of how you might use continuous progress, self-paced instruction, or curriculum compacting to modify that objective. We're going to go ahead and give you about 4 minutes to do that. All right, folks, there is our timer. I hope that you were able to jot down some ideas. If it's not perfect, if you're struggling with it, that's completely okay. You may have found that you need to work through several drafts. You may have found that you need to or that this one's not acceleration friendly, and that's just as valid of learning. All right, so I'm gonna end acceleration and hand off the reins to Laura to talk about enrichment.
All right. So again, we're taking a look at the front side of your document in which we are seeing what enrichment looks like. And we're talking about the relevance, the context, the authenticity of these learning experiences for our students and things that are going to take our standard objective and enrich it, right, into real world applications with this essential question of why does this learning matter beyond the classroom? How can we see its relevance in society, in our communities, in a life as an artist, in my life, right? In ways in which I'm experiencing and consuming art. And so hopefully, again, you're having an opportunity to see there. Let's take a look at our definition. Right, learning opportunities that enhance a student's interests and talents through creative and academic exploration. Enrich content standard by providing activities that appeal to student interests and social emotional well-being. Now, before we go to the next slide, I want to pause here because I think we haven't really said that we acknowledge that our arts courses and by nature already do so much of this, right? A lot of us, especially maybe in less courses that are more repertoire based, but ones that are really more highly student centered, we are giving our students a lot of choice, a lot of autonomy. And so remember that these things are written for all subjects. This is not Brandon and I writing this, right? This is for all academic areas. And so we're looking at this through that lens of like a math class or a science class as well, right? And so these definitions, hopefully you're thinking, I already do this. This is part of who I am as a teacher because we know, yes, Brandon celebrating, we know that the arts are already so inherently tapped into, boosting the social and emotional well-being of our students and really creating that relevancy piece and giving students that ownership, as well as a lot of self-paced instruction and autonomy in the ways in which they're working. So I want you to hold on to that, especially now when we're talking enrichment, because this really also lends into, and this is our next slide, it does lean into our comprehensive arts education model in which we see that exposing students to arts where it exists is part of what we do, right? And so we break down those fourth walls. We create opportunities within our classrooms that make learning exciting, and ways in which we can do that is through project-based learning, looking at these real-world projects, these interdisciplinary projects, cultural and global awareness. We know that our arts wouldn't exist if we're not really talking about how art exists globally and culturally, right? So that's just inherent to what we do. Looking at some competitions and challenges, encouraging our students to participate or at least go through the steps as if they were to be able to go and audition for things or be a part of something. Technology integration, ways in which we're tapping into the multimodal ways in which we can present our knowledge. So all of these types of experiential learnings, these field trips, and our favorite one, of course, when we get those clinicians in, those master teachers, right, taking students out to festivals and really exposing them to teachers and artists aside from who we are in the classroom as us, our teachers, who we are, but really giving them multiple opportunities to learn from other people. And even through just like documentaries, right? And listening to or reading artist statements from other people. So ways in which we're exposing them to the language and the content and the skills of other artists is really important for what we do. So this is already something you're already doing. So we just want to do more of it, and we want to think about how we can continue to enrich these opportunities for our students.
I wanted to call out two things that have come up several times when we've been in the field. And the first one is thinking about guest speakers and expert panels. If we are implementing these things specifically just for our honors kids, we had several teachers say like, but why would I only bring it for like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of them? Why wouldn't I have this guest speaker speak to everyone? And we said, of course, have the guest speaker speak to everyone. But then maybe the standard level instruction just gets to like enjoy the experience and have that experience be in the now right with the expert panel. Maybe the honor students have to do something with the knowledge that they gained from the expert panel as well, in addition to the expert panel. And then when we're talking about competitions and challenges, I want to re-emphasize what we said in the last webinar, which is that we are not choosing who can take honors and who cannot take honors at the beginning and intermediate levels. That is not our prerogative. That is up to the students. And so we're not only letting the students who can be successful in the all-state orchestra audition for this. We are allowing everyone to audition for it. On the flip side, are we forcing them to audition and to send it in? Maybe not. But audition or learning how to audition is a very good skill for students to have. It might be an advanced skill for a beginning student to have, and thus be appropriate for for beginning honors. So if that student truly doesn't want it to go off into the bucket of real applications, maybe they still record their performance, they do, or their audition, they do their audition in front of you as the teacher, or maybe again, if it's orchestra, maybe they do it in front of the band and the chorus teacher as their panel, and it's like a mock audition. So you can make adjustments as necessary, but there still might be an expectation that honor students at least complete an audition. So just those little nuances here were things that came up over and over when we were in the field, and I just wanted to share.
Great, thank you. All right, so we go to the next slide. So again, we are on the first, no, we're on the back side now of our paper. Again, we're used to doing this in person, as Brandon had said in the chat, so sorry. But on your discipline specific, let's take a look at what we've given you as an example. So again, if you are just joining us, Brandon, can you please drop that in the chat? It's also in your reflection journal. I'll type in the reflection journal. It's on copy paste, if I can get this over here. Okay, so please go to the reflection journal and you can access it there. Again, in our first column, this is the objective. In our second column, we've given you a possible way that we would change, or that we would have it exist at standard level instruction. And now we're showing what would it look like if we were to enrich it at the honors level. And so taking a look, what do you think it is for your discipline? Go ahead and write that on number 7, and you can just kind of log it in the back of your mind, and we're going to tell you the answer in a second.
If you are struggling with watching the slides and the example document and the reflection guide, we completely understand. Don't feel pressured to have this done exactly at the same time that we are doing it. If it takes you some time to complete your reflection guide and you want to take a deeper look at the examples on your own time later, we actually highly recommend that. So no worries whatsoever.
Okay, so let's see how you did. Most of our disciplines leaned in on guest speakers and expert panels. We did, however, have the example in theater arts that was experiential learning. So if you're curious, go ahead and scroll and to see how that might be different from the other disciplines if you're not already looking at theater. And to reiterate what Brandon said, it may be that everybody is listening and participating with this expert or this panel of people, but the honor student is having to do something additional with it. Or maybe they are having to find that person. So for instance, I did podcasts with my students, and my students had to take the initiative to go find the person that they were going to interview. And so one of my students connected with a Radio City Music Hall Rockette, found them on social media, and the person agreed to do a phone call with them and got on their podcast. So ways that you, again, can really give student choice and autonomy in this type of work. So your project might look the same, but maybe for your standard level, you're giving them the person, and honors, maybe they've got to go find them themselves. So ways that you can just, again, differentiate what the expectation is. What's really important, and we didn't start by saying this because it was in last week's, is you do have to make sure that you are very clear in articulating what the difference is between your standard level instruction and your honors level instruction. And it really should be done at the onset of enrollment, because we want to make sure students know the expectations. Because again, as Brandon said earlier, we are not gatekeeping who can come into our beginning and intermediate honors level courses. These students are going to decide that they want to take that chance, they want to push themselves, they want that rigor. And as teachers, we are there to encourage them, to support them, and to provide learning experiences in which hopefully they can be successful, but they need to know what the expectation is, and then the grade will reflect their performance of that. Okay, so next, all right, we're going to try it together. So here is that same standard objective that we were looking at earlier as the example, in which we are seeing how the emergence of our art form has had an influence on society. And we're saying that if that standard instruction, again, it's very teacher-led, and we're asking our students to summarize the impact using the 3 or 4 examples that the teacher has already provided in the classroom. What are ways in which we can lean into some way in which we can enrich this? And so we've included them down at the bottom as a reminder. Maybe you're doing project-based learning, tech integration, global awareness, experiential learning, competitions or challenges, or guests and experts. So in your reflection journal, question number 8 is to, again, take this objective and think about, what could I have my honors students do with this that's going to be different from my standard level kids? Again, this would be at beginning level. So whoever your beginning level kids are or students are, how would this look different for honors? So take a minute. I think we do have a timer. Maybe we don't. I don't know. You're right, as Michael has said, and that is exactly why we have, well, one of the main reasons we have actually really advocated for this, because we want to see our students coming into our programs. We know that recruitment has been a challenge at our beginning and intermediate levels. And so, yeah, another way that we can encourage them, but of course to meet their needs, because so many of our students are ready for those challenges and they do want to be pushed in some more academic rigorous pathways. So, all right, let me stop talking. You think about this challenge, and I will give you a second to do it. I think, do we have a timer on the next slide or no?
We do not. I am just keeping
Okay.
time.
Okay.
So it might be beneficial if you have an idea of how we might be able to do this, even if you're just speaking in rough draft, just pitching out an idea, go ahead and drop it into the chat.
I would definitely probably lean in on tech integration with my honor students, because I know, like, okay, maybe I would just have my standard level kids go ahead and give just, a brief summary. They could write it, but I would want my honors level students to really design like more of this larger project that they're going to really show through images, through research, right? Ways in which they're again taking it and enriching it into more, just again, increasing that depth and complexity within the work of it. Maybe
Yeah.
with global awareness, right? Looking at how it might be, again, more culturally connected or globally connected. Go ahead, Brenda, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, personally, I think documentary, right? Me and my friends are gonna use tech integration to do documentary, but we've got some good examples in the chat as well. Somebody said project-based learning, have the students research how that art form developed and then present it to each other, specifically looking for how their presentations differ from one another. Love that idea.
Mhm.
Not just the work, but then the analysis of the complexity. That's great. Um, I am, oh yeah, toss up between tech integration and PBL, but global awareness is also a good one, right? Yeah, it might be interesting to examine how that art form affects different locations differently or is heralded differently. Um, Lord knows the United States views dance very differently than a lot of other cultures and countries across the world. Brian saying, have a local dance studio owner speak to how she designed a dance based on her own experience of Hurricane Helene. Honor students might use this to design their own dance and possibly receive feedback from the studio owner. Awesome. Great. Sweet. All right.
Okay. So we're going to try asking you now to look a little bit more closely at one of your own objectives and to see for reflection journal 9 and 10, go into pick a beginning or an intermediate or a novice in developing, depending if you're VIM, right? Pick an objective and see how could you enrich it. Make sure that you are using your unpacking document because again, we want you to have a very clear understanding of what this objective is asking. So I love Brian's example because really in one of our earlier trainings, we really talk about how our objectives are written to be so interwoven with one another because you really leaned in on the create objective, right? Where students are going to take that information and do something with it in the create strand. And that's great, right? Because we do want to see that happening. And we want to be able to enrich these objectives in ways that are most meaningful as artists. So absolutely, but we definitely and you're going to have that feedback and application of that feedback into our artistry. So yes, you're going to see a lot of that overlapping and interplay with one another, but make sure that you again are really understanding what that main objective is trying to have the students do and know, so that as you're enriching it, you are really strengthening that component. And so we'll give you a few minutes. And again, here are the ways in which you can enrich and take a look and see if you can come up with a different example for yourself. Right, love it in the chat. That's yes. Caitlin was saying her arts National Art Honor Society has been working with the Senior Center. So being able to organize a field trip to do arts and crafts with them. The impact it would have. Absolutely. And again, I think that just to, as we're wrapping up your ideas, this is the one that I feel most of us probably already do the most, right? Of all the three ALIs, again, we'll talk about extension next week, but between acceleration and enrichment, I think that naturally we will gravitate towards enrichment. It is important, though, that we have a balanced curriculum. So we remember that Venn diagram. You can't just live in the enrichment bubble. We have to make sure that of all the objectives, some you're trying to accelerate, some you're extending, right? Some you're enriching. We're looking at increasing that depth and complexity throughout. So and we'll talk more about that in the last webinar, right? How we see the whole picture, we see that the whole elephant if we come back to that metaphor. But again, knowing that so much of this is already probably really natural. You could probably go through so many objectives and identify ways in which you can make these connections through enrichment activities for your students. So, okay. Go ahead. I think,
All
yeah,
right.
Brandon, next steps.
Yeah, so I just wrote it into the chat, but I know that our friends who watch this later won't be able to see that. But I just want to point out the fact that you now have 6 examples or 6 ways that you are already primed to modify standard level instruction. We gave you the example of acceleration on the paper. We did our group example, and then you did one yourself. Then we did those same 3 for enrichment. We will do another 3 for extension. So we just want to make sure that like you will definitely be leaving this series with concrete examples of how to continue this work. So we want to bring to your attention other DPI resources other than the ones that we've spoken about today. Yes, we did share these with you last time in the first webinar, but they're important and we want you to know about them. So they are linked in your worksheet. We've got the 3 webinars in this series. Next week, we will talk about extension, we will talk about depth, we will talk about complexity, and we have about 5 minutes just to answer any of your questions right now before we continue on. So
I want to address Caitlin's question in the chat if I can. So yes, you have access to the recordings because these are in our professional development catalog. So again, if you've missed the first webinar or you want to watch it again more slowly, you can access it there. And there's that slide deck. It is coming up. But since that was one of her questions, I wanted to make sure that we took a moment to address it. We do not hand out the slides, but you can, always hit pause and take notes and as you have to. So. Other questions though?
we're really good at wait time, so we can just sit here and sing to ourselves in our heads.
So where is the link for that part of the website? Are we talking about our AE Hub?
I think so. So our PD catalog link is right here, but we also have our AE Hub, which is go.ncdpi.gov/capital AE-hub. And Laura just put that in the chat.
Oh, I forgot the C. Oh, hold on. You would think I mistyped. Let's try that again. Actually, my C is sticking, so it's my computer. Oh my goodness. All right, there you go. Okay. Well, again, if we don't have any questions, you know that you are able to always email us or contact us. We'd love to hear from you, and we are here to support you. And as we said in the beginning, know that we will probably have lots of questions as going to be doing this work over the entire year. Hopefully, again, you're leaning in with your district leader, with other teachers in your districts, maybe even talking with neighboring districts. So we all need to do this. It's a tribe, right? We all need to do this together and support one another. But this is a local control decision. And so you do have that autonomy to, again, work at your district level to understand like what is this going to look like. Okay, so unless you have something else, Brandon, you good?
Oh, I get the next one. So
Oh, go ahead. Yes,
We
you do.
would like you to choose a card. I gave you space to answer all four questions if you'd like in your reflection journal, but we need you to choose at least one. Pick a card, any card, and answer the question that is underneath it. Diamonds, of course, are thinking about what was a special gem that you actually uncovered here. What the hearts, like something that touched your heart, spoke to you. Spade is some new idea that you dug up, or clubs, what idea grew for you? We love to hear these answers in the chat, but as you are typing, Laura's going to share a few more updates with you.
We really want to make sure that you are staying connected to us. We're in week 5 right now of our presenter spotlight series on our social media pages. So hopefully you're seeing all that. We've got incredible presenters at our conference coming up this fall. So make sure that you are following us on Instagram and Facebook. And then Brandon will send out at the beginning of every month our listserv, which has a ton of information, including stuff from our partners from NCMEA, NCAEA, NCDEO, NCTC, right? All our and the Arts Council. So make sure that you are connected in these 3 ways so that you know what's happening. You are aware of events and things that we can do to support you. And the next one is we want to see you at our conference. This is our CAKE, our event or CAE conference, short for CAKE. And it is going to be in Greensboro this year. So we are traveling it and we hope you'll join us. It is on Saturday, September 26th. Registration is available via Eventbrite. And so hopefully you can register to join us. And we have conference swag this year. We have t-shirts. So yay, can't wait to see all of us across the state rocking out with our NCCAE CAKE conference shirts. And so stay tuned for social media posts because those deadlines to make sure you register to get your shirt is like next Friday, the 28th. So it's coming up quick. If you need CEU credits, you are going to take this reflection journal. Make sure your share settings are so that anyone can see, right, or view. Sorry, and then you're going to attach it into the Google Forms. You select the appropriate thing that you're listening to and do the questions and make sure that you upload your reflection journal to it or submit the link. And then you will receive your certificate.
All right, anybody got an answer to share in the chat? I haven't seen anything, I don't believe. Quick copy paste from your reflection journal into the chat. I think what speaks to me the most, I'll just share that enrichment is exactly what you were saying. It's so what we're already doing. There's a lot about the honors framework that's just good teaching, and I think it's more about saying it, naming it, and doing it with intentionality in a way that we can document on the development and evaluation tool that we referenced in the previous webinar. We've got a couple things. It says, I'm starting to be excited about the opportunity to offer honors level chorus to my incoming freshman singers. That will help me recruit. Yeah, it will. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, we don't want to lose out to honors courses in other arts areas, other honors electives. So we've also got still wrapping your head around acceleration. It's a tough one for you. I hear you. Absolutely. And that's where sometimes it might be that, just because I know you're a music person, it might be that sight reading is self-paced, but everything else is as a whole group. So it doesn't have to be all aspects of the entire curriculum. It's maybe one element is accelerated. We've got
Yeah, and
one more.
as I was gonna say, in my experience, like if I could place the honor students together in one course, then the curriculum compacting or the speed at which I'm delivering instruction, right, is going to happen a lot faster because again, they're not going to need that breakdown as much. They're not going to need, sort of that the repetition of certain things because maybe they are coming in with already some prior knowledge. Again, pre-assessment is going to be really important. We talk about that in the first webinar. So maybe I'm able to go faster, right? They don't need it slow. They don't need it broken down. They don't need it scaffolded. I can just give it to them all at once. And so just ways in which you can maybe design programs to support an accelerated pace of learning with honors level students if you're not like stacking them within the same class as your standard level course. So just, have your teachers look at ways in which it's going to make the most sense for what they want to do.
Also, remember that the way that you implement this in the 27-28 school year doesn't have to be set in stone forever in perpetuity, right? We're going to give it a go. We're going to do it in 27-28, and we're going to take our lessons learned and we're going to change it for 28-29. And that's perfectly fine. Other great things, something that they've already been doing with upper level classes already, and it will be a change to offer this for beginning and intermediate. Exactly. We know that our accomplished and advanced courses are already inherently honors. And so it's just some of these practices, even though it's a lower content, the practices and approaches are the same. And the last one we'll touch on today is the county is exploring having students audition for honors chorus. Yeah. So just because they want the credit and not because they can do the work or will audition. So I think that is where you get to decide locally exactly what your honors coursework looks like, what the expectations are, what the modifications are for students who don't want to, maybe pay for the audition or are too nervous about actually
No,
sending
I
it
think she's
in.
saying to audition into the course, Brandon, is how I read
Ah,
that. So
music on
she's
the
doing a
course.
placement audition of who
Gotcha.
gets into honors before they actually start taking the class.
That is not the intention of our policy for honors at the state level. It is something we can certainly take back to our honors team, Chrissy Brown and Kelly and Tom. But I will say that that is not the intention of the policy. So great, wonderful. Well, please feel free to contact us if you have any further questions, and we appreciate your time here today. And we will see you next week with webinar 3.
Have a good night, everyone.